Las Ceann Comhairle. Thanks for the procedural fluidity, as the Ceann Comhairle's office described it, for allowing me to take Deputy Kenny's question this morning. Minister, the Luggala house and estate are an absolute jewel in what is a truly breathtaking location in the spectacular setting of the Wicklow Mountains, and frankly it sends shivers down my spine at the thought that this location, which should be enjoyed by walkers and tourists and locals and so on, might be bought by some international property investor. Or my stomach literally curdled at the thought that Dennis O'Brien expressed an interest in it. It should be something that is available to everybody, and a number of times it's been raised whether the state will acquire this estate to ensure its availability to the public.
Minister, 2 minutes.
I'm aware that this site, comprising a historic house and estate of some 5,000 acres, has been offered for sale with a reported asking price in the region of 28 million. As the Deputy will be aware, my department has no direct role in this sales process, as it is a commercial matter between the owners of the property in question and the parties interested in the purchase. Through the National Parks and Wildlife Service, the Department of Culture, Heritage and the Gaeltacht manages a property portfolio in respect of national parks and reserves of approximately 87,000 hectares. These important biodiversity areas are located all around the country. Given the limited resources available for capital investment within the national parks and nature reserves, I recognise the need to focus on the core responsibilities relating to the management of the existing parks and reserves lands. The estate at Luggala will be a significant addition to our stock of publicly owned heritage properties and lands. It provides a central connection between disparate parts of our Wicklow Mountains National Park. But my department could only consider acquiring this property if the price fell to within a certain range or in the context of a donation or a bequest, and this is known to the vendors. In this context, I would also remind the House that in late 2016, my department negotiated the extension of the Wicklow Mountains National Park by purchasing almost 4,900 acres of Dublin uplands at Glenamole in 2016 at a cost of 800,000. Wicklow Mountains National Park and Glendalough, Deputy, as you mentioned, are amongst our most beloved and popular heritage jewels. The Luggala estate has allowed a permissive access to a hugely popular walking route down to Lough Dan for many decades, and I would hope that this will continue under any new ownership arrangements. And furthermore, the estate has been an excellent neighbour to the National Park, working closely with it on habitat management and the promotion of our stunning Wicklow Mountains for tourism, filmmaking and amenity. And it is my wish that this close cooperation will continue into the future.
1 minute, Deputy.
But just hoping it isn't achieving, and the thought that this beautiful walk that people currently are able to enjoy because Garrick Brown of the Guinness family has allowed the public to access Lough Dan through the estate. That could all be ended if some property investor or private interest takes over the estate and doesn't allow that access. And that's why we want more than concern expressed or hope expressed. We think the government should proactively go and acquire the estate. And I wonder, given that you say you are willing to consider acquiring it if the price is right, what negotiations, direct negotiations, have we initiated with the sellers to see whether we can acquire this estate? Because that answer that you just gave is exactly the same answer as we heard from the Minister last summer when this question was raised. Has there been any progress?
Ministers, 1 minute.
I would imagine, Deputy, that's because there have been not ongoing discussions. There were previous discussions, of which I'm not, for confidentiality reasons, give the House the information about that. So, but we are opening to further discussions in relation to this. But as I mentioned, there is a permissive right of way in the estate, and also the price has to be right. So what I'm saying to you in so many words is that the door is open for negotiations into the future because it is of the location and it is of architectural and cultural significance. And the estate is actually within the target area where acquisition could be considered. But it also falls within the core of the park's target area and encompasses some of the most iconic views of Wicklow outside Glendalough, but it would not have the same strategic significance to the National Parks and Wildlife Service. We did actually acquire lands in 2006, which were in close proximity to it, but these were two unconnected pieces of land. But, you know, there are scarce resources, obviously, in our department, and we're mindful of the need to focus, as I said earlier, on core responsibilities. But we could consider acquiring this property, as I said earlier, if it fell within a certain price range, and that the vendors are actually aware of the discussions that took place, and there may be discussions in the future. So it'll be up to the vendors, perhaps, to discuss it again with the department.
From
here, right? And to be honest, the investment, we should be absolutely set out with determination to get this estate. When you say it's not strategically important or priority, I don't understand that. Have you ever been up there? It's absolutely spectacular. And if we had access to the full estate, now we can just walk down past it to Loughdam. If we had access to the full estate, the investment the state would put in purchasing it would be repaid in multiples over years to come. Because anybody who was going up to Wicklow or thinking about travelling through that landscape would want to go down to Luggala. It would easily pay for itself over the medium to long term. So given that all the big fanfare about 2040 and about the investment in our cultural infrastructure, God almighty, you couldn't get a more important piece of cultural, architectural, natural heritage infrastructure, if you like, than the Luggala estate, which is important in terms of the oak trees, the deers, the architecture, the landscape. It is absolutely spectacular, and it would be a tragedy if some property developer or private interest got hold of that estate.
Final response from the Minister.
Deputy, I'm not sure if you heard my response. What I had said to you is that there have been previous discussions in relation to the purchase of this estate, but there are obvious constraints from a financial perspective, and unless the property was within a price range that is acceptable to the department, they're not going to be in a position. But what I am saying to you is that we are leaving the door open in terms of further negotiations into the future, and hopefully therefore something will be in a position. I do agree that it's an estate of high scenic value, and the combination of the mountain, the lakes and the woodland are particularly attractive, and its wild aspect so close to a major city also adds to its significance. It's an important example of a hunting and fishing lodge where the emphasis was more on short-term accommodation rather than formal reception rooms. But it's a particularly striking house in terms of the 20th century cultural connections, which are both tangible and intangible, and many noted artists and writers and musicians have stayed as guests and contributed to a wealth of high-quality artefacts. And so these collectively give the property a quality that would be considerably lessened without them. So I accept all of those facts, but at the same time we have to allow reasonability in terms of spending monies from the taxpayer at the end of the day. So we were open to discussions if the Deputy wants to consider that further.
And